the idea that even though we can work harder at a state school because of this pressure, it's also true that we actually might not even know that we have to work hard.
I met you under a year ago. I met you in the second semester of my sophomore year at SDSU when you were a junior. And dude, I think I honestly talk about the interaction I have had with you, Anthony, Dylan, a bunch of other people on the FIS board. All of you guys were just down to welcome people with open arms, especially when FIS was maybe smaller than it is now. I mean, it's definitely going in waves. When you and Dylan went on it, definitely peaked it up. There's a lot of amazing memories that I have from that time. And like, it's crazy because I had no idea you could try hard in college and really set yourself up for post-college. So I always talk about that, man. It's like, yeah, it is really freaking sick. When I tell people like, I met the motivated people, that was like you, bro, and others in those clubs. And it was really cool because you were just so down to talk with anyone about how to get in those roles or put yourself in the position to aim up and stuff. So you've been aiming up for longer than me, and I freaking envy that.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah, please.
Because my attempt at being super outgoing was purposeful for FIS, and it was very forced.
Sure.
Me, yeah. I am introverted in nature, and so whenever I talk to people, I have a battery that goes down. Every single conversation I have, it goes down to 0. Typically, most people, once they approach like 10% level, they slow down, they stop. With FIS, if I had to describe it, it was like going from 100 to negative 50. But I did it because I was hoping for, in the process, to allow the battery capability to expand somewhat so that I can be somewhat in the middle ground of not being weirdly introverted or weirdly extroverted. So what I did was I was regularly introverted, and then I went way past my limit of extrovertedness. I think I remember first meeting of FIS. I don't know if you were there, but a lot of people were there. It was like 70 people, and we were in this cramped room, and we were introducing the exec board, and everyone was doing their little traditional, hi, my name is blah, 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 blah. And I was like, this is too boring. Yeah. I don't want this stuff. Okay. I just went up. I'm like, this is so counterintuitive to my entire sense of self.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, how's it going, everybody?
Yeah.
My name is Beckers.
Dude, yes.
I am going to be in investment banking, which is unheard of in this school.
Damn right.
And I got it from FIS.
We got it from FIS.
And then blah, 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 blah. Just finished my intro and then just left.
Yeah.
And then a week after, everybody's just, yo, you had so much energy that it made me want to join and come to the next meeting. I'm like, ooh, that's fire.
Let's go. That furthered my knowledge on that whole battery. That's a real analogy that I freaking love, and that is valid, man. Especially towards the end of the day. I tried to do a podcast last night, and dude, I had so much social interaction yesterday. The podcast was not quite there. I just really didn't have a whole lot to say, and I think that battery thing is really real. Are you talking about that first time at FIS? Was that this year, like first semester this year? I definitely most likely was there, and so many people were going out last semester, and the whole energy this semester too, the energy is so high up there. But yeah, the hopes and dreams of people, I think, really expanded, and just having that opportunity to understand that you can go these limits and get top tier, top quartile funds. Like, it is possible if you do so much freaking work. I just want to say really quick, I know for a fact, at least at the company I'm working for, buy-side B2B SaaS, we have a section in our Notion board for recruitment, and it says finance club executive members. So we have like Ivy League schools and top schools, and then there's just like regular schools, but the finance board or like finance presidents. So it's like, seriously, companies are looking for that type of thing. And actually, I'd love to talk about that. Do you think that we, not being a target school, like especially you and a bunch of the finance club people, do you think a lot of you, and honestly me, because I think this is true, do you think that we can work a little harder and have a little bit more grit, determination when we're in the trenches on the books or reaching out to companies or just putting our name out there, being vulnerable to the professional world? Do you think that we have more of that, or to maybe UCSD or, of course, UCLA and Stanford and USC? There's multiple ways of interpretation. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, of course. On the one side, you can say that being from a state school, a party school, a non-target school is going to push you to try to do things that are a lot different in a lot more unique ways to land similar or same opportunities that someone in, for example, UCLA would. There is a sense of pressure, and I talked to Anthony as well on my podcast about this, but a sense of pressure, it's a healthy pressure that is always in the back of your mind that forces you to literally be like, if I don't do something towards my goal today, I am actually falling behind, not by 1 day, I'm falling behind by 2 days. Because the other person at UCLA would have done that day because it's almost natural for them. And they would have had the benefit of compounding that day's worth of work because of the connections that they share those days with. And so every day that you have being productive and being with people that are also like-minded, it's not a linear trajectory, in my opinion. It's exponential in a way. But on the other side now is the idea that even though we can work harder at a state school because of this pressure, it's also true that we actually might not even know that we have to work hard. And the reason is, and this is partly what I'm targeting in doing this podcast, doing a startup idea at Zip, is addressing the idea of if people don't know what they don't know, they won't do anything to pursue what they don't know. It's like that simple. And so people at, for example, UCLA, target schools, private schools, East Coast schools, they have an inbound supply of these amazing people, companies, alumni always coming back and re-fortifying the prestige of the school. Whereas state schools, there's not that big of an effect. Let's say I graduate in 5 years, I come back. The rate at which our network, our brand gets larger and more established is much slower than the rate of, for example, UCLA. And when smaller number compounds in a bigger number, the bigger number probably ends up being 100 times more in the next 5 years. So it all depends, because if the students don't get exposure to these amazing opportunities early on, there's information asymmetry, and information asymmetry is the problem I'm basically targeting with the podcast as well as the stuff I'm doing.
Information asymmetry, I love that you put that on my radar because I've never really heard that said out loud. But yes, when you're not aware of the opportunity, dude, that's freaking huge. And it's almost like the rich get richer type of thing with the prestigious schools. They're just going to continue to have knowledge of those crazy, far-reaching things. I would say my first couple of years, I wasn't very involved and I wasn't very motivated, and I didn't have any understanding of climbing the crazy ladder of finance and how vast that ladder is.
But why? Like, why do you think that was the case?
You know, it goes into how you're raised a little bit, right? Your background. And it's also because, dude, I mean, we talk about like socioeconomic classes, right? In any society, right? It's like those lower ones just don't know of the opportunities of college or scholarships. Or I remember like, even when it comes to just like traveling or having, there's so many opportunities out there, man, where there's organizations that are just going to allow you to do things, but it's really just that knowledge barrier, the information asymmetry.
And then another level of why
please.
Do those families or people in the working class not know about these scholarships opportunities, why they need to go to college? Why, on a deeper level, do they not know that?
I don't think I'm going to have the correct answer, and maybe that's still an answer that is being uncovered. Maybe I'd love to hear your thoughts in a sec, but I think it's all about your influences, and think about narratives. I would love to talk about narratives soon, because I think every agenda that everyone has in the entire world is because of potentially a false narrative. Not necessarily false narrative, but like a lot of people are running off of false narratives. So like the whole world is running off narratives. Every political campaign is just a narrative that someone's trying to push, a narrative like a story or like a reason to work hard, because we're all on this kind of flying ball, just chilling for 80 years to 100 years. I would love to hear your perspective on that question you asked me about the why.
It's probably because my question wasn't specific. So I want to get a little more specific, just to make the boundaries a little bit easier to like work around. Let's say we have a family, a working class family, making median income level in the US, $30,000. And then here in California, average cost of living on a monthly basis is $3,500. How does that even work? The math doesn't work out. So this average working class family, let's say the parents both work. What is stopping, let's say, one of the parents from working this, let's say, job of being a preschool teacher? And then let's say the father works as just like an average, I don't know, mailman, UPS delivery driver, whatever it may be. What's stopping the mailman from stopping that job, realize, okay, we're barely making rent and living expenses. We have like 2 children.
Yeah.
It's flatlined. Like this is going to happen until they die. There's no growth.
Yeah.
But I think they know that. Everybody understands that. But what is stopping that mailman from saying, okay, well, I'm going to get a new job. I'm going to learn some new skills. Right?
Comfort and reliability on what you already have. Yeah, this works, but we're not going to be easily paying for our kids' college, giving our children any money when we go away. We're barely going to be making it on our retirement. I love that you're digging on this question and trying to get the answer. I love it. I love it. Because do you have an answer for this? Is there like
I have an assumption. I don't think it's correct, but I think everybody has an assumption.
Because there's a bunch of different avenues.
I would think about it like, I think the mailman understands the situation he and his family's in. Like they're basically surviving. And he's under this pressure of, I need to find a way to do better somehow. He knows his job isn't going to cut it, but he still works that job for years and years and decades. So what I'm thinking is he knows that if he stops working that job, it's already half the income gone. That there is no guarantee that he can switch to a better job that pays better. Because then it's going to be like, even if he switches to the same job, let's say he fails to get a better job and he's, at least I can go back to the same level. But no, because now he's lost time of money he could have still earned. So now instead of being even on that barely surviving, they're underneath barely surviving. You know what I'm saying? So it's like the switching cost is very high. So like the switching cost of any regular working class job of trying to get a better job, like in tech, software, all these amazingly hyped fields is like near impossible. Kind of must take on that.
Yeah, there's no guarantee. Dude, I think there's probably so many books about this type of thing happening from early days in every society where someone's comfortable in some land, like the whole California gold rush thing, moving for a better future and risking your life, risking your family's life to like move to a different place. That's always a thing. Or think about immigrants, right? They had the tenacity and it wasn't guaranteed that it was going to be good. But they said, all right, we're gonna make the first step. And then that sense of urgency turns on, just like when I'm watching Shark Tank and you hear these people, they quit their job and they start their startup. And then that's when their minds are like on all the time. And I think that kind of happened for me on a very micro level over the summer coming into my junior year, because I didn't really have a crazy opportunity over the summer. I was just a valet driver my sophomore summer, which is not really that necessarily big at all. So it really turned on right when I got here to my junior year.
How did that go, by the way? The interview process? I bet the associates, whoever's interviewing you, they're like, what? It looks like you have some experience valeting. Why are you even investing right now? What is happening? And so what was that experience?
No, completely. I talked about like past month of my life on that interview cycle more than I talked about any other experience. I talked about how like that summer leading up to the start of my junior year had instilled some aspirations to work, to go higher and to like actually elevate. I know there's never any guarantee, but actually the opportunity cost, the cost of trying is so low right now because I'm not in a full-time job, I'm in college. But I spoke a lot about my time at the clubs that I'm in, the organizations that I'm in, and then I started the pickleball club, and I feel like I was able to riff off that a lot with the leadership and just say that I'm putting in hours right now. I've never put in hours like I've done in my entire life. And this year I woke up, that sense of urgency really turned after I just like calmed down over the summer and realized that there's no reason to just sit in the corner and be sad about the fact that I don't have a crazy trajectory in front of me at this moment. There's no reason to just be down and stuff. It's like the best thing I can do that's going to ultimately make me happier is actually just starting to put in the work. And I say that a lot, like put in the work ethic, whatever, but it's honestly true. Just turning your brain on and having your brain on more actively and thinking about a really amazing future for yourself. Pretty much to answer your question, man, I talked about leadership in that year. And I talked a lot about just like how I had a really bad kind of sophomore year end to it, didn't get the internship. I had a bunch of relationship, family, personal life, like a lot of changes. And that going forward, I started to allow myself to think instead of just all these short attention spans that everyone has. I actually started to like slowly aim up in my personal research that I was doing at the nights of my valet job and over the weekends. And then when I came to school, my junior year start, I just got more involved than I've ever been involved in my entire life. I got a job coaching pickleball. I started the pickleball club. And of course, like I was very involved in FIS and entrepreneurship club. And I just talked about all of those experiences extensively. And then, of course, how I'd been researching buy-side finance and saw how there's this whole path and it's really exciting to work with entrepreneurs. I had talked about how I have an entrepreneurship spirit and I've always been thinking with that kind of set of making my own thing and leveraging up for myself. That was a unbelievable run on answer, man, but pretty much it was pretty funny. I don't think they were definitely thinking of me as their first choice at the beginning. The reason that I got that position at a buy-side finance fund with my last experience being a valet driver, no internship business thing ever, was because of tenacity, work ethic, and just the fact that I put in more hours than the other applicants, especially on the application and the case study. So if anyone listening ever wants to get a job, just make sure, like, especially on the application and when they give you an assignment, usually on the second round of the interview, just put every waking hour into that assignment. I had to source 3 companies and write a little excerpt on why they're in the investment thesis of the company that I'm now working for. It was like 12 pages. They asked for 5 or something. I just took the requirements and blew them out of the water for no reason. And they took a chance on me. It's going well. It's going really well. I love it. I've learned so much. And again, that opportunity, because I made that first step and I got vulnerable and I got scared and stuff. And I put myself out there. Like, I barely got my foot in the door right with that first little internship opportunity. And now that door is opened quite a few feet now, and I can really see in. And dude, I can really see more of a future now that I've been, so much information has been put into my mind about a beautiful future in the business world, and it's been shaped in a way that makes me really excited. And that's a thing that a lot of SDSU students don't have, or like non-target schools don't have, just to kind of connect it there. It's like you don't see those far-reaching fun lives a very low percentage of people get to have. But dude, that was such a long answer.
So in your answer, you mentioned the idea of doing a bunch of different things. You said urgency kicked in. I call it the spark factor. When that kicked in, you started trying a billion things.
Yes.
ES, FIS, pickleball, everything.
Yes.
So do you think that if you had chosen to do one thing, let's say you did only finance, didn't spend your time on pickleball, didn't spend your time on ES, only finance, the idea of diversification versus specialization, what do you think the results would have been and why?
I think that I probably would constantly be thinking, I would have gone further is the answer. Specializing in anything would definitely have allowed me to go further. I'm not sure if my chemistry works that way. Just to do that and not know the unknown of trying the other things, to rule them out, because that's what everyone's told me since I was young. I always need to try a bunch of things so I can figure out what I don't want to do. We're back. So
host and speaker.
Yes, and behind the scenes cameraman. Yeah, dude. It's an eerie question that you asked me, because it's like I think about just focusing on one thing, because I think that's talked about a lot in just like motivational podcasts that I listen to, or even just like the highest, most popular podcasters in the world. Like, they probably are the most successful people in the world. They pick one thing, right? And get really good at that thing, just specializing in one thing and being the best in that thing. So the answer is, I think that if I would have chose buy-side finance solely and I would have just been a sourcing mule, I would have just only cared about the models, Excel models to build cap tables and just dilution rounds and just understanding buy-side finance only, I would probably already have guaranteed a return to my company, maybe, truthfully. But pretty much for me to sleep at bed at night, I don't think that specialization, I'm quite ready for it right now. Potentially. And maybe this is the wrong answer, and maybe in 6 months I'll look back and be like, yeah, maybe I should be specializing, because I totally want to specialize one day, 1,000,000%. But I do love diversifying, because as we're young, there's so many things out there that we're not aware of. So It's cool to get that information load. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on the specialization and diversification.
Yeah, so from my end, there's two sides to this. I also got like the spark factor starting junior year, similar to you. And then starting junior year, after literally Googling, what type of finance job should I get that pays?
Yes.
Investment banking. I'm going to do investment banking. Woo! And then I didn't know target, non-target, all that stuff.
Yep.
And so I started just like reading more and more, looking up Reddit, Wall Street Oasis, all this random stuff. And I'm like, what is going on? And then I had to go through this phase of just learning a bunch of like technicals, financial modeling, all these things. Invested like $500 something to like a full modeling course. Like I was doing that modeling course for the span of 2 months plus other like learning things for investment banking. I was going to school, even I think it was like winter break as well, going to school 8 a.m. and then leaving at 8 p.m. every single day for those 2 weeks to finish that modeling course, which technically takes around 6 months to do. Finished it in 2 weeks and then did my other learning that complemented. For example, I switched to like interviews and such. So I specialized for that time frame of 4 to 5 months. To be able to catch up in knowledge, at least to some of my counterparts. I was sitting next to people from Brown, Yale, all the targets, Ivy Leagues. And then I was looking, we had this training and this instructor, and we had to do assignments to complete, and we did work in groups. And I was next to these Brown, Yale kids, and they were just like, I'm not really sure how to really do this model right here. How would you forecast this line? And I'm like, I had to learn so much more to be sitting in the same Zoom call with you. It's crazy. Anyways, now a next kind of example of specialization is with my this year, coding over winter break. I was like, dude, I'm so tired of not understanding like how technology works, how websites work, how like browsers like Google Chrome, how that works, how computers work. And I just started Googling. Found a resource, free code camp, hopped on it, learned HTML, CSS, JavaScript, full like website design, built like 3 websites, landing pages and stuff for stuff I could work on. And I was doing that all over winter break. The bad thing about that is, I already said like the good thing, which is like you learn so fast, extremely fast. But the bad thing is you are extremely lonely and overworked completely. Because I was showing up to the SDSU library every single day over winter break while everybody was having whatever eggnog and stuff. And I was going to the library, including Saturdays and Sundays, going to the library. It was complete, fifth full, all by myself. I could yell if I wanted to.
You have the floor of the library, man.
I had to post, I posted on Instagram stories just for the sake of, oh, this is funny. Yeah. There's not a single soul alive here. Yeah. And then every single day, you know those people that work in the library that check around? I don't even know why they're there, but I made them have a purpose, okay? I was there so they could, every day they would check. I was like, hey, how is it going?
Yeah, you give them the round.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's like the good parts and the bad parts. The bad parts is like you're just there.
Yeah.
And you're just like lonely and just working and
trenches. No, dude, I love that. I think you have done these kind of micro specialization things, and man, again, I'm gonna take that away. And when you get curious, I think you're a really curious person. Do you believe that?
Yeah, I think so.
And I think yeah, when you want to go down a rabbit hole, you go down the rabbit hole further than anyone. And I want to start going down the rabbit hole a little bit further too. Put on that do not disturb and freaking go hard, man, and fully understand it. Dude, it's fascinating, man. You're adding discipline to my life because you talk about the negatives of that. I always call it in the trenches. Like you're in the thick of working, right? Yeah. Of learning.
Because it's not, everybody says just work hard, but there's always negatives to everything.
So it's not motivation, it's discipline at the end of the day. I feel like I've always been like, motivation forever. Let me help you be motivated. It's like, no, it's just have the discipline to wake up in the morning and take a cold shower. Like that type of thing. But yeah, man, I love those micro specializations that you put yourself through, really understand a topic, and man, just you talking to me, dude, I just want to hire you. Dude, like if you put in work, like over winter break, the tenacity that you have to go out and learn all these things, it's like, man, whatever organization that you work at, it's like, if there's new things for you to learn, you're gonna be doing the diligence.
Yeah, I did have a kind of a question for you. Yeah. Overall, because you had a similar story, what is your vision now, right? You talked about when you first got your foot in the door, you saw the sliver of light in the door, seeing it open. Yeah. You chased the light, and now you're at the point where you have a semi-open door where it's no longer this bright light, but you can actually see people on the other side, and opportunities you can capture, what is the direction you think you're going to take starting now?
I don't have a good answer for that question at all. I think recently I've been working a little less hard on exactly huge overarching career path ideas a little bit, and more being like, okay, how can I be as happy right now as I will be in 10 years? Because when I got my internship after working maybe 80-hour weeks, I guess you could say, just to like further my knowledge and turn on my do not disturb, how you're talking over winter break, but like probably on a little bit lesser of a scale. When I'm working hard, like when I got that internship that I put on a pedestal so much in my entire life, like it was almost a little bit of a letdown factor. And I think a lot of people talk about that when they get into a crazy job. It's like they work so hard to get this full-time offer, and then when they get there, they can be miserable because they just say, okay, life's going to be amazing once I become a millionaire, billionaire, and I have my yacht and my expensive cars and stuff. And it's like, when you pedalize it too much, I think it can be really negative when you get in those positions. So I've been thinking about like, how can I constantly live to be fulfilled and enjoy the presence of other people? And so that has got me down a bunch of things, of just personal things that I enjoy doing. And a few big examples of that is cooking, planting, making kombucha and mushrooms, which is hilarious, and spiritual yoga stuff. Been going out to classes and stuff like that. And dude, almost like cliche talking about that stuff, because it's like, yeah, sure, it's like I could do that whenever and that could make me happy, but learning it now, I think, is just gonna allow me to perpetually sustain a hardworking time, because I am putting some more time into leisurely fun activities, honestly, that just make me, fulfilled at the end of the day, I guess you could say. Make me enjoy I'm enjoying a lot of little things right now, bro. A lot of brain positive chemicals are releasing throughout my days, more so than first semester when I was grinding down in the trenches. And it's a really interesting thing, but pretty much right now I want to kind of balance that back out, where I've spent a lot of R&D time, research time, looking into the fun things of life, truthfully, like in the things that I've been personally doing, even when it comes to like rock climbing, and I've just gotten into lobster diving.
What even is that?
Yeah, dude, you just get flippers to snorkel on, you have to get these big gloves, and you have to get a permit. It's like a fishing permit, and dude, they're in La Jolla, and you just swim down, it's like 10 to 20 feet in depth, and you just grab them and throw them in a bag and cook up some lobsters. But yeah, so I've always been into like adrenaline sports or whatever like that. So just when I went cliff jumping yesterday, I had a ball at the time, and it's, dude, I've been spending a lot of time in the maybe past month thinking about, okay, what are these fun things that I like to do? I've just been organizing all these things that I really love to do, learning about all these classes around, learning about these groups of people. I've been spending like a decent amount of time just in the very recent thinking about that, and then not as much on just purely learning CS stuff or learning about how investment banking modeling works or buy-side modeling like last semester for me. And it's like, I'm trying to balance that back out. And it's a constant thing. It's like you're constantly like that scale that the lawyers have on their desk. Like you're constantly like trying to balance things, be in the equilibrium of fulfillment and just sustained happiness.
You mentioned, what was it? You mentioned OneNote and organization. So what was like the goal of mentioning that? What did you want to talk about that? Because that is interesting.
It's like pretty much my OneNote is a large to-do list and what I like to do list. And pretty much I have some huge overarching folders, because you have one like notebook, and then I have 10 different notebooks, right? And then inside that notebook you have folders, and then inside that folder you have just a large script of text, right? So it's like those overarching folders, it's like, how do you best organize that? How do you best optimize it? And dude, I have so many. One of my favorite ones is just people, the people folder. So anyone that I've met in those mediums, I have Spikeball, I have like podcast, I have a finance club, I have entrepreneurship club. And it's almost weird to separate actual people into those places. But for a lot of people, I have them in multiple folders inside there. And then, so pretty much whenever I'm like in a state of mind, if I want to go cliff jumping or I want to talk with some people that are from the entrepreneurship club, I have a bunch of lists of people that I've met from those places. And being in a college location, I think we're meeting a lot of people, especially when you're putting yourself out there in those clubs. So I have a general log of people that I meet. And that's my favorite thing about my people section, is like, I have every single day. And every single day I try to write down a note I really don't mean to. I feel like when I'm saying this out loud, it sounds transactional. It sounds like I'm doing everything for myself at the end of the day, which I don't want it to sound like. But I do have a general log of those, what do they call it? Like your contacts, your leads. So I have these where it's like I write down someone's name and then I write down a little snippet about them that I remember from our conversation that I can bring up at a future time. And dude, I have used that. I see faces, like when I was running some social event for FIS, I saw 3 faces come. I'm like, oh, let me get my general log. I know they're in here somewhere. And I find their name. So dude, I know their name, bro. Maybe they don't mind, but oftentimes they forget. And I shake down, like, what's going on, Mr. X? I know their name, and then I can bring up something that we spoke about before, and that is freaking huge.